carried in the labs. We did some of the most important research, Unix security, R&D at the labs. You probably know most of it that started from there. But then he moved on and became an officer at AT&T, and he was Senior Vice President Chief Security Officer AT&T from 2004 until 2016 when he retired. He also elected an AT&T Fellow in 2010. This has been an officer and executive in AT&T. He also has a lot of passion for education. You can see that. I was watching him, listening to all the alumni, and he has also taught me a lot how to give back to alma mater and contribute to education. In that regards, he has been an adjunct professor of Stevens Institute of Technology for 29 years, and he has advised more than 3,000 students in cybersecurity area. In addition to that, recently he has also been a research professor at Computer Science Department at NYU, Camden School of Engineering, and has been also senior advisor at Applied Physics Lab in Johns Hopkins. He's the author of 6 books. This is one of the books I happened to get his autograph. Here he wrote with his son, Matt Adrosio. It's called From Gets to Apps. If you get a chance, please take a look at it. He's also the person who motivated me to write my book. And you might have seen, maybe in Atlanta, I had a copy of my book. And I give all the credit for him, to encourage me on that. There has been several technical papers and patents in cybersecurity area. He has BS in physics from Harley Dickinson College, Masters and PhD from Computer Science, Stevens Tech. Dr. Sukad Mahapatra happens to be from Stevens Tech as well. He also is a graduate from Columbia Business School. I know we have Dr. Surya Mahapatra, Columbia Business School professor and alumni here. He has served on the board of directors for MNT Bank, NS Advisory Board. Some of you might have read his articles of citation in Wall Street Journal in cybersecurity. He writes a lot of articles in CNN, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal. He has also the privilege of working with 4 presidential administrations related to national security. He has been to White House many times, and he has given many interesting talks about his experience there. He and his wife live in New Jersey, the proud parents of 3 wonderfully successful millennials. I think all of us have a lot of millennials. Without further ado, Ed, it's my pleasure to invite you.
A lot of masters and PhDs here, and not a single French or philosophy major, right? So I'm a computer scientist, and what we'll try and do, there's some young people here too, I'll try and do a talk on computing and computing security in a way that doesn't require that you be a computer scientist. Is that okay? And then afterwards you tell me how I did. See if I can explain to you some of the concepts. The other thing I'm going to do, I'll explain the title of the talk in a minute, is connect computing to some topical issues. So you can see a little bit of politics here. But my worldview is not Republican Democrat. My worldview is there are people who understand and appreciate and do technology, and then there's everyone else. That's how I view the world. So you'll see that seep through as I sort of comment on some of the things that are going on in the world, because we saw the crazy hacking, election hacking and other stuff, and I can't resist but get into it a little bit. And it's fun to do it with engineers, because I think we have a similar worldview. Like I see a lot of problems, and an engineer looks at the problem and tries to think of a solution, right? And that's what I think we need to be doing more. Less sort of complaining about problems and more fixing the things that are being hacked. Does that make sense? Like when somebody's hacking a piece of equipment or a system that you built, instead of saying, stop hacking it, why don't you fix the thing that you built so that they can't? Does that make sense? That's kind of my worldview. Now, title, Random Walk. This is a little crazy, but here's what I do. Many of you may do this as well. And I'll back up. I'm colorblind. So it causes me to make all my PowerPoint charts about the same. Like my wife makes fun of them, because they're usually pictures or they're gray tones, because I have to have everything the same. but it allows me to build a library of little talk charts and pieces of talk that are all fit together. So I put them in a big jumble. Like if you know a little bit about computing, I think there's a big, gigantic, infinite Turing tape, because I have thousands of them. And what I do with Random Walk is I go in and I pick little topics and I sploosh them all together into a talk, and they almost don't make any sense. But what I find is that it does make sense, because it all comes from my head, so I guess it comes from the commonplace. So it tends to jump around a little bit. Stick with me. Some people think it's like a speed dating talk, where we do this, and we do that, and we do this, and it's sort of like life, right? That's how life is. Too many talks, in my opinion, lay out a complex topic, and they try and make sense out of it, make it look nice and uniform and clean. Then you come away thinking it's uniform and clean, but it's not. Like, we do that with boards of directors in cybersecurity. We tell them, oh, it's actually very simple. We put in baby words, and they come away saying, oh, I totally understand it. But you've done them a disservice because it's not simple. It's very complex. And we're trying to make engineering too simple when it's not. And that sounds funny coming from a professor. But at any rate, here's the style. Ask a question, and then give an answer. Question, answer, that's how the talk will be. Now first, a preface here. And this is useful for this group, because you guys are all, I'm sure everybody in here is physics. So think about physics for a moment. When was the best time to be a physicist? I think between 1890 and maybe 1930 or so. You know, really amazingly creative time, right? Einstein toiling away in his patent office, writing the 2 greatest technical papers ever, you know, creating a new way our world looked. So for 30 years, you can maybe say 40, let's say 4 decades, unbelievable creativity in physics. And then what happened afterwards? A couple of you yelled out 40s. Well, after the 30s, we got very socially conscious of the implications of physics, right? And we thought, wow, like blow up the world, make bombs, all this very frightening things, but you also do amazing things. We can electrify rural areas, we can do all kinds of good, but we can also do some bad. And we saw scientists become very socially aware. In fact, I think that social awareness actually killed physics. Like a lot of you, we have teenagers in high school taking classes. Don't you think it's weird that physics, when we teach it in high school, still goes through Newtonian physics, which was developed hundreds of years ago, and then sort of tails off at electricity and magnetism, which was developed around the turn of the 20th century, and something developed 1905 to 1920 we call modern physics, 100 years ago. Crazy? It's like physics just stopped. They just got all crazy and everybody got so socially aware that I think physicists forgot to keep innovating. I hope I haven't offended any physicists here, but it's a weird concept. Now, let's go to my field, computing. My dad was a computer scientist. Like, I come from a weird family of everybody doing computer science. My sister, my dad, my son, my daughter does Girls Who Code. Everybody does computing, so I have all these crazy anecdotes. But my dad was at a conference in 1968, a NATO conference, and the term software engineering was coined at that conference, 1968. 40 years later, we had 2008, which was the iPhone, Twitter, all the crazy advances that happened there. 40 years of intense, deep creativity, right? Unbelievable, changed the world. And what's happened since then? We're getting a little socially aware, aren't we? Computer scientists are going, does a lot of nice things, right? We can transform healthcare, we can transform, our society, but we can also hack ourselves into the Stone Ages, right? I mean, we can have cyber war and cyber warfare that could potentially have implications on safety of people's lives. It's the same thing, right? It looks like kind of similar stuff. So I noticed that Einstein had written a letter to Franklin Roosevelt in the 40s. Have you ever seen that? I have actually a picture I'll show you later. And he was warning President Roosevelt, you need to be paying attention to this nuclear science, the real implications on our world. It was very hard to get the letter to him. It was sent it and get there. Actually, I had to send somebody there to read it physically to him. So I was sort of inspired by that. And I ended up writing a letter to President Trump. Now, my friends all say, they say, Ed, you're no Einstein. And my answer, my joke answer is, well, he's no Roosevelt. Whatever. I'll show you that later. That'll be the last thing we'll talk about here. But I want to get you into my mind frame here, okay? So we're going to try and do computer science concepts, one after another, blowing through some political stuff in here, and we'll see if you can follow. I think you will. So first, simple question. How can you stop meddling in elections? Now, I'm not saying call some country and ask them to stop. Those of you who do computing here, and I should touch those, you don't stop cyber attacks by calling all the hackers and saying, would you please stop? And they go, okay, and then they stop. Like, watch the news every night, and it's Americans saying we have to ask Russia to stop meddling in our elections. And as an engineer, I'm screaming at the television. My wife is saying, you stop, please. Right? You don't stop these things by asking your adversary to cut it out. It's ridiculous. So here's a simple thing. Like, I teach my students that you build essentially an asset chart to figure out what it is you're trying to protect. Now, look at there's 3 rows and 3 columns. Let's start with the rows. The top row, these are the assets we have in our election, any country. At the top, you have LinkedIn, social media, websites, email. That's like the messaging that's going on amongst all of us. And it was hacked, apparently. I think it's pretty well established. So that's the first asset that has to be thought through if you want to stop meddling. See the middle row? That's the Democratic, Republican, Independent, all these political parties that, by the way, are run by young people who just graduated from Georgetown, political science majors. It's not run by professional IT managers, it's run by our kids. If you graduate from Georgetown in an N-1 presidential election year and you have a political science degree, there's a 1,000% chance that you'll go to work for one of the campaigns. You will. There's a law, I think, that you must go there. The bottom is infrastructure. So that's voting booths and databases and computers and systems and all the people that are in there. So if you want to stop meddling, you have to do something across the 3 rows. Does that make sense to you? It's not when people go, oh, stop meddling by just encrypting. You go, yeah, but there's all these dimensions. It's like you're engineers, you think methodically about problems, and I haven't seen anybody do this. I look all over the place, and everybody has one little piece of it, but nobody stepped back. System engineering needs to be applied to this. So let's look. Let's go through each one. There is a field in computer security called digital risk monitoring. The thing on the right is from a company called Forrester. They're like a company that observes the industry. Another is Gartner, and there are all these companies they observe, and they look at vendors who are doing work, and they graph them based on how much, I guess, they paid them off to be on the chart, for whatever. So there's a whole industry that looks at social media, that looks at the dark web, looks on the internet for evidence that there's tampering or fraud of your brand, your corporate brand. America needs that. So we need a big center, a lot of smart young people and help from these vendors looking to see who's tampering with the brands that are part of our elections. So it seems very simple. And I've talked to maybe 6 or 7 of the CEOs from those companies and asked if they'd be part of a group to put together a national digital risk monitoring center in Washington. We'll get some money and get it going. So that's one of the things I've been asking the White House to do. We'll see if they do it. So that's the top row. The middle one, do you ever notice we give Secret Service protection to a candidate as soon as they're viable? Well, why aren't we giving them IT security service as well? As soon as they're viable, they should have to turn over all their iPhones, all their computers, everything, And something like the NSA should be running the campaign election IT systems. That's what it should be. Like that guy is trying to protect a candidate from being shot, but nobody protecting a candidate from being cyber shot, right? So why do we do that? It seems so obvious to me. And the Secret Service, give them the budget, and they can have whatever. But it seems natural. Anybody know those two people are? If you're a computer scientist, you do. The guy on the left is Wick Diffie, like a real super, like sort of the Henry Ford of cryptography. And the guy on the right is Ron Rivest from MIT, also a cryptographer. I had a chance to interview both of them at length for his courses that I teach. And I asked both of them, what do we do about local election infrastructure? And these guys, we're talking cryptographers who basically invented the public and private key infrastructure capabilities that you would use to secure an election. Both of them said, use paper. This would be like asking Henry Ford, you know, hey, how do we transport things around? Horse and buggy, right? I mean, that's what they said. So they do not trust infrastructure to protect our elections. I'm not sure what that means. It's very frightening. Like I was thinking, well, what do they think about, you know, nuclear power plants? I wonder what they would say to that. Like, you know, use paper for that? I don't know. But I think you do need to keep elections local. You need to keep them distributed. And you need to have some attentiveness around the people who are running the elections. I live up in Byram Township here in New Jersey. And the election team, I used to be the Board of Education president there, and I'm on the economic committee, very active in my little town, so I know other people. But next door to me, this woman, Betty Spears, she's 96 or 7. She's been doing the elections in Byram for 50 years. And God bless her, I don't think she can see or hear. But we all love her. She was my next door neighbor. I love when I see her, I give her a hug, and she's always so nice. She's running the election, and nobody has the heart to say, Betty, you can't see or hear. Maybe somebody else should be helping here. You know, it's that kind of thing that I think we need to be more attentive to. I think there probably are opportunities for elections to be kind of messed with. It doesn't cascade, like if somebody hacks my wonderful Betty Spear in our election in Byram, it's not going to spill over to Parsippany. But, you know, you can see some problems. So election meddling, system engineering approach, those 3 levels. Intelligence community, so NSA, CIA, what if they hired, remember I showed you that chart with things, what if they hired like Gartner to do that for intelligence community? Here's what they've come up with. These are how good the nations are at hacking. There are 5 countries up there that can hack everyone, anytime, with 100% success, and that should freak all of us out. Like, Russia, US, China, Israel, UK are on record saying they can hack 100% of the time anything they want for any purpose under any circumstances. Don't you think that's a little weird? Now, does anybody in the room know who Roger Bannister is? Raise your hand if you know that name. Okay, good. Runner. So Roger Bannister ran 4-minute mile. And before he ran the 4-minute mile, isn't it weird that nobody could? And right after he did, what happened? Everybody could run a 4-minute mile. So when I see that, when I see Russia saying, we can break into anything, and the US saying the same, hackers hear that. And there's this Bannister effect of, if Israel can break into anything, I guess I can too. India's a little too low there. Because you're not hacking enough elections. By the way, I made all this up. I just put the box there. This is not from some think tank. This is me. But I think it's good to be a little lower. To be honest with you, this is not the badge of honor to be on the top right there. This is like, you know, you're threat actors. Like just erase global actor, but criminal. You know, that's what you're dealing with here. You get the point. Oh, this is not a very controversial topic. So why couldn't the Russians find Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails? I know, by the way. So I'm going to show you. Okay, now we're going to start with a couple of basic computer science concepts. And there's a lot of people here who do computer science, but let's start with this. Here's what a perimeter is. A perimeter in a company means I set up all my computers to trust each other. So this computer and that server and your PC, they can all connect and share without having to authenticate or do anything. We do that in a company, and when we do that with a big group of computers, the circle we draw around that is called a perimeter. So if you've ever walked into any company in the building, you walk in and they'll say, oh, you're on our network. That means the local area network with all their computers that trust one another. So if I break into one, I get all of them. Does that make sense? Like in my home, like in my house, when my kids were small, seemed like it was protected from the neighborhood somehow. But now my kids, they're millennials, I'm eating my cereal in the morning and there's kids walking through and I said to my wife, who's that kid? You know, people coming and going. It's like I have no more perimeter. I can't leave my wallet on the table anymore. I trust the kids, but it just seems weird if there's people coming and going. Some of you may have homes like that where there's always people wandering around, kids that I never saw in my life. So businesses are sort of seeing that now, and they realize that perimeter is insecure. And by the way, businesses are global, so it means a computer in Alaska might be trusting a server in Australia. So I get a break-in in Australia, and something in Alaska is now vulnerable. Does that make sense? It's a perimeter, and that's how we draw it. The dots are servers, PCs, computers, and the big line is the perimeter. So one of the things we've done in computing, see up in the top left there? I guess that's someplace in Canada or something. That little dot, watch when I push it up, it goes, whoops, it goes up there, there. You guys see what I'm doing? That's called isolating a computer or isolating a server, and we call it micro-virtualization. That's where you take a piece of infrastructure that you want to protect and you move it. It would be like me taking my wallet that's sitting on the table in my home and opened all these kids, and I pick it up and I go to the bank and I put it in a vault at the bank and I lock it and I go home, and there's no kids that are going to touch my wallet, right? It's out there. Every computer scientist on the planet agrees that that's right. And it's called distributing. So in computing, if you're taking one of my tests, you know that if you write a distributed system answer, it's always right. Distributed is always better. So this is distributing. Well, Global State Department, the U.S. State Department, has a perimeter that looks like that. And it's the most complex perimeter in the world because those dots that are in there are in countries where you've got an ambassador who thinks they're the king. When you're an ambassador, it's capital A, and you could be ambassador to Albonia, that's the Dilbert country. If you're there for 5 minutes, you're a Madam Ambassador for the rest of your life. So it's a big deal to be the ambassador. When you run a consulate or an embassy, do you feel like listening to a bunch of wonky cybersecurity people back at the State Department, Foggy Bottom, you know, they studied it, you know, wherever they studied, and they're going to tell you how to do security? You don't listen to them. Do what you're going to do. And then a foreign leader comes in and you're about to show a video, a glowing video of the foreign leader. The network is down, and somebody says, what are we going to do? And they go, well, there's Wi-Fi from the store next door, and they go snap into it, and they do. And the visitor comes in and the video plays well, and now you think that Wi-Fi bathing an embassy is not rigged? Of course it is. They do it, they do it. And then there's this concept called a SCIF, a secure compartmented information facility. In the most remote consulates and embassies, the SCIF door is propped open and party supplies are stored in there. So you tell me these places are not compromised? It's a joke. So if you have that, and Hillary Clinton's email when she was running the State Department is sitting, I put it in Los Angeles, could be anywhere. If it stayed there, every state actor owns the State Department's network. Google it. They're had. Everything on that network has been stolen and compromised and lost. If you're in the administrative network, you're compromised by some miracle of accident, because they give them no credit for doing this on purpose. She happened to move her email to a server in New Jersey, like for whatever reason, had nothing to do with computer science. They just moved it. The Russians couldn't find it. Because they own all the official, if it was done officially. Now my horror in all of this was that the Trump administration would say, enough of this. No more isolated servers. Everything back in this dangerous, horrible thing that has been compromised by every nation. You know that's wrong. So again, computing forgets itself. It's amazing how fragile our understanding is when we take something we learn in theory and apply it in practice. If you ever read the readings or the writings of Richard Feynman, like the greatest physicist in my mind, he always talks about that. He says you have students and you explain something to them, and they get it and they write down an answer, but the minute you ask them to apply it to something, their knowledge is so fragile, it just doesn't pop out. So here, so obvious that isolating servers is a better concept than putting it in a big perimeter, but I never heard it mentioned once through the whole, all this rigmarole about, you know, putting people at risk by isolating servers. My first hack at age 10. We have anybody under 10 here? Probably a couple. There you go. A couple. So this is the first thing I ever hacked. That's a sportsman shop on Route 35 in Neptune City. It's a gun shop. And they had a soda machine. If you share a generation with me, you remember soda machines used to look like that? You can open that door, and you can actually get your hand on the bottle, but you put a quarter in, and the membrane would open up, you pull the bottle out. So I figured out, I'm pretty sure I was somewhere between age 8 and 10. I know I do this, nobody told me this, but I invented it. I would open the thing, take a bottle opener and a straw, and drink out all the soda. Machine learning, probably heard about this? So there is really good artificial intelligence, but here's what happens. There's all these scientists here. New sciences start with the same goal of creating magic, making us all live forever, creating potions, predicting the future. What did Newton do between like physics and calculus? Does anybody know? Alchemy. He was an alchemist. He wasted the best years of his life trying to develop potions to do magic. Go look. Right? That's hard to believe. So scientists go nuts when they come up, they have all this gobbledygook that has to be pushed out. What's the gobbledygook of mathematics that got pushed out? Numerology. Right? What's the gobbledygook of astronomy that got pushed out? Astrology. What's the gobbledygook of chemistry that got pushed out? Alchemy. And on and on and on and on. You could argue what the alchemy of computer science is. Still emerging, still too new. But artificial intelligence is trying to make sense. If you go back and look in the 1950s, the movies like Twilight Zone or these other Outer Limits, what the computers don't look like these zombies. Take me to your leader, I will take over the world. It really like this crazy concept of AI taking over. And you even have a lot of very responsible scientists, Elon Musk and others, saying artificial intelligence is going to like take over the earth and go, you know what they're talking about. It's ridiculous. Human beings misusing technology will ruin our earth, not computers taking over. That's the oldest nonsense ever. But at any rate, I'm looking at machine learning deeply, talking to companies and understanding neural network. My dad's PhD was in tessellation automata, which means feeding instructions to these massively parallel arrays of computers. So I've been doing this as a little kid. I'm thinking about this. And I want to show you what a lot of people are calling machine learning, and it's not. It's an example sort of the alchemy. I'm going to write some code here. But if you don't do code, you'll follow. So if wind is less than dust, then open umbrella. You have that? That's like an easy one, right? Okay. And computer science like to end a sentence, so IF, to be symmetric, ends with FI. That's from Edgar Dijkstra. So, let's keep going. So can I put a gust about 100? Is that okay? So the gust is about 100, and if the wind is less than 100, you can open the umbrella, but don't open it if more than 100, because the umbrella will fly away and break. Do you follow? Okay. Now, do that over and over again. Repeat until forever. Just keep doing it. And if you're a performance engineer, you'd say, well, every time through that loop, I'm setting the wind gust, so let's just do an optimization. Just do it once, right? You guys okay with that? You see what I did here? I just moved doing it every time to do it once, and then keep, you guys with me? Yeah. And now here's the machine learning part. If the umbrella breaks, then just set gust to wind. And that's what most people are calling machine learning. Not all, but this is, it's okay. Like, that's a nice little algorithm. I would give that to my daughter. She's a junior, doing Girls Who Code. Writing that algorithm is okay, but that's not advanced machine learning. There are some machine learning things, but again, computing needs to figure out its alchemy and work it out. Oh, it's a good one. Can botnets take out the entire internet? Everybody know what a botnet is? That's where I infect a bunch of computers, and let's say everybody in this room is the grand prize winner of having got infected by my virus that I sent out. Think, whole world, I send out a piece of malware invite code, maybe in a fish. Maybe I say, hey, come to Nitro in Persephone, you're going to have a great time. I send it all out, and naturally you would be people who would click on such a thing, right? And I infect you with a little piece of software on your machine that I can now use to command attacks all over the place. You guys with me? Mm-hmm. Now, when my voice speaks to you, you're all being reasonably quiet, so when I speak, it hits your ears, and a computer scientist would call that a one-to-many relationship, okay? Now, if your ears were weird sort of rebound machines that bounce things, and I said, all right, I'm gonna yell to your ear, and you're gonna repeat it or bounce it like an Ashutosh, I would go, and it would hit all of your ears, and then it would sound like, like all of you yelling at him, and it would overwhelm him. Does that make sense? One to many, many to one. That's sort of the basis for a botnet, doing denial of service attacks, and we call it distributed, because there's a lot of them. So distributed denial of service, DDoS, DDoS. So it's, I go, and you shout. Now, what if it's not just me doing that, but it's all of you doing that to another big group, and so on. Like, the power of exponentiation creates some very big problems. And furthermore, what if your ear could amplify? So when I go, you go, ah! So all of this to generate a lot of traffic at him. It creates some scary things. This is the architecture of them. There are computers all over the place. They're set up, and when you visualize, it always looks like this, like a big, like screaming from all these different places at something. Those are not screams from something, they're screams at something. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. These are trying to take things out. If you do the math, here's what you get. Now, I'll use my mother's PC. She lives down still lives down in Neptune City. I think she has Monmouth Cablevision for her service. By the way, I used to know how to hack Monmouth Cablevision set-top boxes. You take the top off. There's a PC, your board, and you'd see the CPU. So you go online, and you look at the CPU number, type it in. There'd be a bunch of places selling that CPU. But they'd always sell the same number with another chip that was the same number with a capital T after it. That's the test chip. Buy that one. And it comes in a little pin cushion. Pop this one out, put the other one in, you get all the channels. By the way, how do you stop something like that? How would you stop it? Because analog, broadcast, you can't say no IP addresses. Here's how you could stop it. AT&T got into cable for a while, so I spent a lot of time thinking about cable. Here's a solution that a couple of companies actually did. When people were ripping them off, they had like a big pay-per-view event, and what they would do is scramble, encrypt a banner message, but encrypt it so that if you're paying legitimately, you wouldn't see it. You'd see gobbledygook, but if you have the chip, you see everything. It decrypts everything, and the message would say, "Hey, welcome to our prize fight. Thanks for paying officially for this. Awesome that you did. Hey, we're giving out a free T-shirt. Mail your name, address, phone number, and we'll send you a free T-shirt." And a cable company in Connecticut caught 8,000 people ripping off cable now. Isn't that interesting? That side of that thing. Back to the story. So my mother, she has, her broadband in and out of the house, and it's probably a couple to a few meg, outbound. So if a piece of malware on her computer was stealing 1 meg outbound, she can still work. She can download, she can still sort of upload, and if you walk into my mother's house right now and you open the door, here's what you hear. That's her computer attacking China all day long. And I go, "Mom, hey, don't touch my computer." It's like she sends email to my kids. She goes on marthastewart.com, and she was a teacher, so she still does Excel spreadsheets, which is why we can't just give her an iPad. She likes to do Excel, and "Don't touch my computer, Eddie, it's fine." And I'm going, "Mom, it's not," but whatever. So her and a billion other people have that crap on their computer. Now, if I have 1,200 of those at 1 meg outbound, meaning it's spewing out garbage at 1 meg, I can take out a 1.2 gig pipe. And if you follow it down, I can take out a 100 gig pipe with only 100,000 of these, and 100,000 is nothing. Botnets could be millions of. You get the point? Like, this is pretty frightening. 100 gig is a big pipe. If you work in telecom, you're talking backbone. 1 terabit per second is peering capacity of our country. That's like you fill up all the pipes. It's like the Lincoln Tunnel being filled up completely from bottom to top and side to side with cars. That's a terabyte on the whole network, and 100 gig does that a pipe. So I was freaking out a few years ago. And my good friend who just passed away, his name was Howard Schmidt. He was the first cyber czar in the United States, a job that I turned down times, including recently. But he invited me to come give a talk at the White House a few years ago. And I said, I would love to. So I go there, and I'm there. I was going to talk about denial of service. So I get there, podium like this, and we're mulling around, and when I get up here, he invites and it claps. And I'm looking, and all these meet the press type people in the front, you know what I mean? Like, real good with all the names. If I said, "Do you know who the Secretary of Commerce is right now?" I'm guessing you wouldn't know. I don't know. But there was some I didn't know. Like, it was way too many fancy people there for me. So while I'm talking, I see Secret Service come in, and boom, Obama walks in. And I go, "Dude, Obama." Right? And they went like this, which means you're done, right? So so in conclusion, so Obama comes over, everybody clapping, I'm there, and I go, "Oh, hold on." And he goes to the podium, and I went like this. I sat down on a chair right here, okay? So Obama is standing there giving a talk, I'm here, and what was I thinking about? I need proof. My wife is going to say, "No, you trip to Washington." Came in 2 minutes late, doing digestion today, met Obama, had a nice trip. I said, "What?" So I'm thinking, I need proof. So here's what I did. I'm sitting here, and while he's talking, I had my iPhone in my pocket. And I figure, so I go like this, reach in my pocket. Like, I'm sure every Service guy's going like this, right? Right? And I go, click. And there it is. That's Obama's backside. If you look right under the podium, that's Vince Cerf, the inventor of TCP/IP. So there's a lot of fancy people there. Isn't that a cool thing? But why do I mention that? See the paper in front of him? Dude never looked at it once, and what was he talking about? Denial of service attacks. And that freaked me out. Like, I thought it was just gearhead me worrying about something, but it wasn't gearhead me. The president gets this too. Cybersecurity is a real problem. Oh, here's a good one. So the original Clinton campaign fears about email security. A lot of you are thinking Clinton campaign. I would imagine Hillary was worried, but it was actually that guy. So 20 years ago and 6 months ago, 6 months ago, I got a call from the Democratic National Committee. I knew someone, a couple of them, Amanda Stevens, somehow said, hey, we're worried about the Republicans, that guy, Bob Dole, and his team, stealing our email, and we will lose the 1996 election. I will let you think about that for one moment. 20 years ago, the Democrats were worried about this. Now, what were they worried about? Well, here's how they're set up. See, they have a headquarters building and a Fairchild building, and they connect through a road. I have a picture here. I drew the little, you can see the dark wire there. That's Fairchild building, and you see the dirt patch there, a Little League baseball infield. The Democratic National Committee, again, bunch of kids there, nice kids, but what they were worried about is the Republicans are going to come with a shovel and dig up the T1 line, that's a wire that runs under the road connecting the two buildings. That's what they thought a T1 connection was. And know anything about telecom, connections out to central offices. No idea. There was a wire under the road. And could I please give them an encryption box to put at one end of the wire to the other end of the wire so the Republicans with it, you get the point. So I went down there. I got there like 8:30 in the morning. I go in that building. And it's like, you know when you go to a medical office with your kids and you go in and you're looking for like the pediatrician and you see, optometrist, suite 109, insurance broker, suite 107, pediatrician 103. You go, oh, okay, you walk over and there's a door, it says 103. Do you knock on that door? I don't, no. Right? Open it. So it's just like, Suite 106, Democratic National Committee headquarters. I go, open it, open, dark room. Ground, turn the light on, I'm in like a little conference room. I sit down, nobody around. I'm in the building, in the room, in their thing. So I'll call back, hey, what's going on? No, stay there. So, an hour passes, UPS comes. I don't think I signed for a package, but I've embellished the story, since then to have me sign. But I'm pretty sure UPS came. One thing I'm sure happened is a guy on a bicycle came in. You know the weird thing that people wear when they ride those bikes, those real tight, weird-looking bike shorts? He had that. And he comes in, and I kid you not, he looks at me and said, hey, dude. And I went, hey, dude. And he pushes the bike in, got something, on his way out, not asking who I was, says, later, dude, and I went, later, dude, and he goes out. So an hour passes, I'm getting bored, so I start wandering around, looking around, what do I find? Their router. Now, the way you hack a router, just turn it off, turn it on, and hit Control-B, that's a break. That stops the reboot. Like when you turn your computer off and turn your computer on, it goes through a boot sequence. The manufacturer doesn't make it real easy for you to interrupt that, right? They don't want you to do that, but there are ways to do it. On a router, it's a piece of cake, Control-B, it stops it. Then you look around and you find their manual, you flip to password recovery. Chapter 57, it says, oh, forgot the password for your network? And you go, yep. They go, well, turn the router off, check. Now hit Control-B, check. Now type this command in, who cares what it is. Tap. I put the stuff on the board there, and then it goes, oh, okay, then it boots up without asking you for a password. At the end it says, for high security purposes, what would you like the password to be now? And you can go, Republicans just got you. I was there to help them stop a guy digging up the wire, and I walk in the building, it's not locked, and I find their router 20 years ago. So a group of Bell Labs folks followed this up with a whole proposal called ElectorNet. Like, let's redesign the way you do it. We'll encrypt everything. It'll be carefully done. It'll be beautifully laid out. And they said, thank you. They didn't do it. And 20 years later, there were consequences. If you make bad security decisions, the consequences might be in 5 minutes, 5 years, or 20 years and 6 months, or whatever it was. They should have listened. They didn't. And by the way, it's really happened. Like, I wrote about it in a book. I told my wife, I'm like, did I dream that? And she don't know. I went back, looked back, and wrote a book, and I had a chapter in there. And several years ago, you get the point. Oh, this is an interesting one. I'll do this one quickly. There's a position in businesses called Chief Information Security Officer. And I think it reminds me of HR, and here's why. In 1930-something, the National Park Service had no personnel department or group listed anywhere. Like maybe it was somebody typing in badges if they had them then. About 20 years later, they actually had a branch called the Personnel Branch, and they were kind of in the middle somewhere. And then by the 1970s, the Office of Personnel reported directly to the CEO. And can you think of a company anywhere on the planet that doesn't have an HR executive reporting directly to the CEO? Can you? I can't. Every single one. But it used to be like 2 ladies with typewriters doing your badge, then it was a group, then it was a department, then it's executive CEO. That's where cybersecurity is right now, 1930s. I can list, but I defy you to find an org chart on the internet that shows a security executive anywhere. They're there, they're buried, like Department of Energy. That's the people who protect our nuclear secrets. No CISO. Department of State, the group that's gotten taken. It's a big joke. You got to move your stuff out to protect it. No CISO listed. Security at the organizational level is in the 1930s right now. What you'll see, and what a lot of the young people in here will see, is that as you watch organizations mature, there'll be security executives reporting to every CEO in the world. Auditors, here, let me show you why everybody is getting hacked. We'll go through this quickly. This is that enterprise perimeter I was telling you about. You tell your auditor, that's the person who comes in, that you have to prove you did security properly in order to function as a company. You lie and you say that my perimeter, electrons bounce off the outer portion of it. Forget about that there might be insiders, forget about that I'm connected. That's how it works. And auditors go, great, you have a perimeter, and they let you sign Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, PCI, and on and on and on and on and on, based on that primary control. And you draw pictures. You say, look, all this stuff's going on in the company, and the electrons bounce off. But the reality is that that's really what's happening in a perimeter. You really have, here up here, you have an email gateway. Anyone wants to come in, email. You have outsourcing, to different countries. You have remote access, everybody working from home, and Starbucks, and the office, and whatever. Down here, you have web, in and out, wide open. Partner access, gateways, on and on. That's really the reason nation states can break in. Here's what they do. First off, email can come from anywhere to anyone. Did you see the fake Jared Kushner email to Tom Bossert, who is the boss of the cyber czar of the United States? And he said, oh, nice to hear from you, Jared. By the way, here's my personal email. How is it that nobody, again, remember I said Feynman? It's all this fragile stuff. The same people completely freaking out about personal email have nothing to say about Tom Bossert telling Jared Kushner, forget about the White House email system, here's my personal email. How is it nobody says anything? I watch MSNBC, Fox, CNN, all these shows. Nobody notices that? Am I missing something? I lost my mind? Right? Whatever. So, email comes in and some goofball in marketing clicks on a fish, and that's because there's a 100% chance that if I send you a wink, you could be an overweight male accountant in your 60s, and somebody sends you a wink saying they think you're cute, you will click on it. you're infected, and then the traversal's easy. Web gateways, we let people surf the internet from work. So that's how APTs work. You want to break into anything? Hey, that's why Russia, US, China, they all go, piece of cake, we can break into anything, and by the Bannister effect, everybody can break into anything. There's a total jailbreak in cybersecurity. We should be deeply ashamed of where we are now. I think the greatest computer scientist who ever lived, Edgar Dijkstra, said, if you cannot build systems that you can reason on and demonstrate that they're correct, then you're doing a disservice. And we've let computing grow like a crazy moss all over the place with no clue as to how it's done. Like I go to these visits to the West Coast, and they go, oh, Dr. Amoroso, come here, blah, blah, blah. We want you to meet our developers. And I just want to get back on the plane and go home, I'll meet your developers. And you go, we're all sitting like kind of in these brick wall places, and they're drinking lattes, and the guys have ponytails, and they're all, whatever. It's a whole Birkenstock thing going on. I go, hey, how you doing? Shake hands, blah, 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 blah. I go, oh, tell me, what do you do? Well, I write, device drivers for industrial control software, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, oh, that's amazing. Where did you study computer science? And they'll say, oh, not computer science, I'm actually a musician. I just sort of fell into computing. And I go, like, would you walk to a civil engineering firm? They go, oh, there's a guy doing strength and materials for our bridge design. Oh, I do. Where'd you study civil engineering? I'm actually an artist. I didn't really study civil engineering. What? Right? The software's a joke. This is ridiculous. Like, we need to make it more formal, more disciplined. But how long has it been around? 1968 to now, 50 years. It's a brand new discipline. Chemistry, when it was first created, tricked Newton into doing alchemy. So we shouldn't feel so bad. It takes time to figure out what's right and what's wrong. So that's what your perimeter really is. Last topic, then a couple of questions we have. Should private citizens advise presidents? Yes. Anybody know who that is? I'll give you a lot of credit if you do. Anybody know? So that is a man I've admired my whole life. He wrote 2 books. One person wrote a biography of him. As I walked to work in Manhattan, I pass his little college every day. That's Bernard Baruch. So Bernard Baruch used to, that's Lafayette Park in Washington. He would sit across from the White House. How cool is that? Watching. Like, he'd sit there, like, sort of, looking at Roosevelt, and looking at Truman, and the press loved it, right? It's like, he had this wise man who made millions on Wall Street and had helped us through World War I, was just a statesman. I think he's a wonderful man. Gave so much money away. You should read about him. He's an interesting guy. Gambler when he was younger. But he's sitting there. I love that concept. And we don't do that. Like, where do private citizens advise any president anymore? They surround themselves with these weirdos who sit around them in West Wing. They're not in life. I've spent time there. AT&T had the contract for all the telecom in the White House. And at one point during my career, I had that group reporting to me. So I was in the Oval Office, we would lay down on the couch, play with the phones. It was kind of cool. But that's not life. That's not where we all are. We should be advising. So I mentioned earlier, Roosevelt wrote his letter, his famous letter to, or Einstein letter to Roosevelt. You can look that up on the internet. It's easy to sort of understand, and it's shocking. So this is what I wrote to Trump. This is what I asked him to do. I said, there's a thing called the NIST framework. It's a very simple compliance framework that should be the only way we do compliance. What happens in cyber is we do the equivalent of having, when you have a home inspector come with you when you're about to buy a home, you go around the clipboard, you look at this, you look at the gutters, and you look at the basement, you get a report, you discuss it, you're done, shake hands, and there's your punch list. Would you do that 37 times? You'd think you've lost your mind if you did that. But every cybersecurity company every company with a cybersecurity team is obliged to do yet another compliance standard. State of New Jersey, state of New York, state of California, when they see, we're going to clamp down on security, they have a new set of rules that you have to attend to. It's crazy. You do it once, you don't need to do it 37 times. So I asked them just do one. I thought they would love less regulatory. I said, government agencies need to be in the cloud. I think they sort of get that. But the one I want to mention is CyberCore. I don't, for the life of me, I don't understand why our country doesn't have a more vibrant and say 20 times bigger CyberCore program where young people get their university degree paid for and then they put 4 or 5 good years in at a civilian agency in the United States federal government. We have little pockets of that. But go back and think how many people in the early 60s started their career working in the Peace Corps. And that was a serious thing. Peace Corps was an alternative to being drafted. Sergeant Schreiber ran the thing. You go back and read the way he described that. He said, when he was describing the Peace Corps, here's the first sentence he wrote in a Life magazine article about the Peace Corps. He said, after you look at what the Peace Corps is, you might think getting drafted is better. The guy, that's so cool. He was saying, this isn't easy. We should do that for cyber. And you know something? The Fortune 500 would probably be happy to sponsor 10 kids at $100K a year. Say $10,000 a year scholarship. Universities would have to help out too. I think they could muddle along with $10,000 tuition. So 10 per 500 companies is 5,000 a year. Over a 4-year so period, that's 20,000 new young people that would be working in the civilian agencies in the United States. It would cost taxpayers $0 if the Fortune 500 just agreed. But what company's not going to do that? Verizon's going to say no. They're going to say great idea. IBM's going to say no. They'll say great idea. Instead, of this chaos and ridiculousness, we blame civilian agencies when they get hacked. If this building were suddenly under attack by enemy planes coming in and strafing with bombs hitting the building, would you blame the building owner here for that? Have hearings? Why didn't you prevent that? Ridiculous. You would help them. Just simply, when an agency gets hacked or a business gets hacked, we fine them, we ridicule them, we fire the security team, call them incompetent. It's a mess. And that's what I asked. I sort of finally got an audience with them. I met with them. I'm hopeful that they'll listen. Call your Congress people and say, why don't you please, if you don't understand computing, then don't run again and let somebody else do it, please. Because I think we're at the point now where it should be unacceptable to this community that anybody representing you as a politician doesn't understand something about technology. If they don't get it, time to retire. It's not acceptable. You guys were okay with that? Promise me you'll do that. So, this is, I give away all my stuff for free. So if you go on the website, you can download articles, follow me on LinkedIn, and I do a big report every year that I give away for free in September, 3 big volumes. So everything I do, you can just download and read. So I don't know if we have any time for questions. Let's see, it's about 12 o'clock, but.
Dr. Amorosa, thank you so much. Really, it's very nice to hear from you. It's such a complex topic on cybersecurity, and you explained it so nicely in a layman term. Thank you. Let's give another round of applause for Dr. Amorosa. What I wanted to, in this complex world, like we all live and breathe in digital world, I'm pretty sure you must be, I would say, protect yourself, like, all the threats you're talking about. I'm wondering what kind of advice do you have us where we live and breathe within this world, where even we don't talk to our wife, we send text only to our wives, right? So how do you protect yourself? What are the do's and don'ts that you would advise?
Well, let me give you one that I think everybody in the room here would agree with, and I think it's the best advice that you could give to your kids. And that's be honest and have high integrity, not just when you're interacting, but also online. So if you're doing something online and the New York Times got a hold of it, wouldn't it be nice if you were actually happy about that? Like, everybody goes, oh my God, I don't want them reading what I'm doing. I always say, I want to say a little curse word here. What the H are you actually doing online that you're embarrassed about? Like, well, like these emails, that are going around that have all this nefarious stuff? Why are they doing that in the first place? Like all these leaks I see, I guess President Trump's discussions with some foreign leaders. Kind of rough to see. By the way, here's another thing that's crazy. He's picking up the phone. I told you my understanding of how White House communications work. I was part of that. Picks up the phone and he calls somewhere. And another foreign leader lifts the phone and they're talking. Does anybody in the room have any confidence that there's not recording equipment at that end collecting the whole conversation? Wouldn't you do that? So he calls, they go, 1 moment please, we'll get you set up. Do you think you're not recording that? Of course you are. So when it gets pushed out, immediately everybody goes, U.S. intelligence community leaks, this is horrible. And I go, you're calling someone. You don't know what they have. Do you know what they have there? The guy might have his iPhone like this, just going like that. The president's calling you to tape recorder. You got the whole thing, you mail it to the Washington Post. Again, if you assume that what you say and do is always going to be in the New York Times, then I think it makes you a nicer, better, higher integrity person. Don't say or do things that are wrong. Be honest. Yeah, sometimes they're secrets. Sometimes you're about to make some military strategic decision or something. Well, you don't do that over the phone, right? So I think that's number one. I think we should be transparent between how we interact here in this nice setting. When you see an old friend, you say hello and you're very happy to see them. And then you leave here and you get online and you say something mean about that person. And then you go, oh, the guy got hacked and he's going to see what I really think. Don't do that. Be nice. Right? So I think that's teach your kids that no two persona. Be nice, have high integrity, and whatever you do is part of the public record, and be very careful what you do. And if you're thinking something bad, then there's something wrong with you. Don't do that anymore. Be nice. Does that make sense? Yeah. I think that's the best thing you can tell your kids, because if a criminal wants you, they're going to get you. So just don't give them anything to get. Not a very technical answer, but I hope that's helpful.
And there's a question about founding president.
You talked about your mother's computer, and in this country, probably 1/3 of the population, they are senior citizens. How do they learn to live with the modern world?
It's a great question. Everybody hear that? The question, very good one, is that there's a growing percentage of citizens in the United States and around the world, because we all live longer. I have 2 grandmothers. One died at 103, and the other 104. And I think they just died because they didn't have anything else to do. I'm not kidding. I don't think I ever saw either of my grandmothers sick a day in their life. They just, every day, they got up, they had their kids, they did what they were going to do, and then, I think they just went, I'm done. Boom. But whatever. See, a lot of people who are growing. So how do we protect them? The answer is cloud, meaning you shouldn't have one of these things anymore. You don't need it. You just need somebody else to manage your computing, and you just need access to it. Like a lot of us, a lot of you are about my age, I think. I'm 55, so shared generation. Remember when we all started doing computing? It was a mainframe, right? We kind of like that. Like when I started at Bell Labs, they gave me this thing called a BLIT. Anybody here know what a BLIT is? Bell Labs Interactive Terminals. It was this thing with a green glowing screen. I had no processor, and it just connects you to a mainframe. And the only administration you would do is occasionally you'd go like this. You'd sniff it, it'd be like on fire or something, so you'd unplug it, put it in the garbage, take a new one, plug it in your back of this. Like, there's no system administration, it's all done for you. Then we got the PC, and every single one of us became an admin. Like my friend Marcus Raynham did the first firewall at the White House. He had a statement that I memorized, I think it's so cool. He said, the tragedy of modern computing is that we've turned every man, woman, and child into a Windows system administrator. Isn't that a tragedy? It's crazy. And my mother, everyone, don't need to be. All she needs, and I think Apple comes close to this, is something that just connects her. What did I say she does? Email? That's all my mother just needs to tap on something, say to my kids, say, I'm going to come see you next week, I'll bring you $5 or something, whatever she said. And then Martha Stewart, you know, the website. And you got to solve that dumb Excel problem, which you can do that in the cloud now too. So my mother doesn't need to have the obligation of that. My wife's dad died at 97. He lived with us. What I noticed was the best thing we could do for him his last few years was simplify his life. Like, gradually took over his checking account. No big deal, it's boring. I mean, he didn't need to think about that. Then other things, and just made it real simple. You wake up, you have breakfast, you read the newspaper, you fall asleep, you take a walk, you have dinner, you watch TV, you go to bed. Like a very simple life, and I think that's why he lived so long. So you're doing him a great favor by simplifying. If I told him, here's your computer, you know, make sure you're patching it. It's like, my father-in-law would have put duct tape on the side of it, thinking he's patching something, right? That's what he would have thought. I mean, so it's just kind of ridiculous to even expect seniors to do that. So cloud is the greatest thing in the world, greatest gift to them. Shouldn't be doing sysadmin, nor should all of you. You don't need to be doing that.
So I guess just one more question I have.
So, Dr. Ed, thank you for kind of, having this great speech. I just have one small question. So, everybody is socially very active. How do you deal with that from a cybersecurity perspective?
Social network.
Social network.
Yeah. Well, again, it is cloud administered, so I don't worry so much about doing day-to-day, antivirus or scanning. That's all done in the cloud. But unfortunately, once you do hop into social networking, you meet a pretty rough crowd. Right? You get into these collisions on social networking that are sometimes ridiculous. If you just decide you're going to do that, then it's the answer I gave earlier. Be nice, have high integrity, ignore the bad stuff. Like I sit on LinkedIn a lot. I publish on LinkedIn. And occasionally somebody will post some really crude, ridiculous comment back. I make sure that I respond to everything except that. So it's kind of a cool way of not dissing them by sending something mean back, but it's like a diss by omission. I love that. Anybody who posts to my social media, and I have a lot going on, I spend a lot of time, I try and write back to everyone. Dear, like somebody, Gertrude says, hey, I liked your post on machine learning, but I think AI has this, this, and that. I always take the time to say, Gertrude, thank you very much for your comment. I really, and by the way, I liked how you pointed this out. Hope you're having a great day, Ed. If you read my stuff, I do that. Everybody can just try and send something nice back. Dale Carnegie, like the greatest master of human relations, said that one of the best things you can do every day, you just try to find some way to add to the sum total of human happiness. Like he made a joke once. He saw a postmaster who was like all like this. He was buying stamps, and the guy was like this. And Dale Carnegie thought, I'm going to say something nice. He said to the guy, hey, that's some head of hair you have there. And the guy went, oh. A lot of people say that. The guy cheered right up, and he walked away. And somebody asked Dale Carnegie, what were you trying to get out of the guy? And Dale Carnegie went nuts. Said, what, are you kidding me? I wasn't trying to get anything. The guy is a little bit happier. You can't do that. So if every one of you on social would cut it out, if you're doing negative stuff, just cut it out. Totally. Just cut it out. Especially if your kids are watching. But if you're on social media and you're doing something nice, like the memes that are mean don't do, but some of them are fun. Little cat pictures. I'm not a cat guy. They kind of creep me out. But you get the point. Like, nice little thing. Do that. And then if we all do that, then social media gets better. But I don't think it's so much a security issue as I think people just take license to be mean there. So don't you do that. And Craig comes back, it's 100. And I go, what are you going to say? I go, well, whatever. They're a different world. I couldn't do that, but she can. So let your kids do what they're going to do, but don't let them be mean. That's really not a good thing. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Good question.
All right, let's take write any books or anything, you may always reach out to Ed. Ed, you have been writing any more books? And if you go to this website, Ed pointed out, and already a lot of good stuff there. I mean, I've been there. So I'd like to invite Dr. Virendra Jena, President of NITROAA,
Thank you. That's it. Thanks. You're welcome. Back at 2:30? No, I'm leaving. Somebody else will take over.
Well, thank you, Dr. Amoroso, for accepting our invitation to give us this team to speak today to our convention. And it was very interesting in my speech. We all enjoyed that. So as a token of appreciation, we have this small token.
Avec Yaya. Vous nous l'avez parlé avant, vous savez pas, l'autre côté sorti. Ça veut dire Égypte. Égyptien. C'est égyptien. Je ne sais pas, votre frère. Non, on va lever les chichets pas. Non, ça me le dit. C'est pas tout le monde ça. C'est vrai? Donc vous là. Ça on le dit. Black and white.
So the guys who are supposed to come, they're supposed to do, so they're going to take the stage out.
Oh, this stage going to come out?
No, no, not that. We're talking about the evening you have.
Oh, the evening?
4 to 5, you're taking like this. Yeah, that's what it is.
Because these bags are nice there, back. That's what I'm doing. Upside down, Thank you very much. Excuse me. Would you go to? No chair.
No, just to the team. You can put just put 10 each in all the tables, then you can do it.
No, chairs are going to be same. Which one give me my share of passwords? Well, yeah.
Oh my, what? What do you mean?
I just thought,
Oh my God.
that's okay. Figured it out very quickly. Okay.
What time is it have to be set? You can adjust for the dancer. Stop.
So why you say like that? What was it you did? I always hear what you did like it. I always hear what you did. I can just pay you for you give me chance. Can I go with you there? Yeah. faut faire tout le temps qu'elle est. Il veut faire l'affaire et vous donner et tout bilité. Qu'est-ce que vous avez? Madame, fais pas de l'autre. Madame, que je paye d'autres. Fais pas de l'autre qui va le job Haïti à la tête et ça va être. Et pas mon fils là, il est là, on a pu éliminer ça. Namaste. Namaste. Au caméra, ça est. Au caméra,
non, ça c'est tripod. Je retire la caméra.
Ok, moi là. Mais tu me dis quoi ça? Tu me dis quoi? C'est dégagé.
Non, ça est tripod là. Oh, ça, on lance lié.
Dégagé, comme ça. Mais on fait
non. Non, ça c'est gardé, ça c'est un lens qui garde mon yo et puis il part et ça. Tu comprends? Il y a des bruits. Pas être là, ouais.
Mais les bottes, bon, pour qu'à tout recorder sur les dos.
Ouais. Ouais même?
Yeah.
Ouais même?
C'est recorder sur les dos.
Yeah.
Ah, moi je suis allé dans Amazon pour moi, Logitech. Moi je suis allé dans Amazon pour moi. Oui, Logitech. Oh, high definition. High definition, high definition, HD. Logitech.
C'est un film, oui. C'est quoi les idées? C'est quoi les idées? C'est quoi les idées? Tu es là? Non, qu'est-ce que c'est qui est là?
Comment tu es là? Bien que tu sais, je suis là, comment tu es là? Et que tu sais, je suis là, comment tu es là déjà? Yes. Moi, je suis là. I'm just going to use my laptop. I'm just hoping that it should plug it in if I have to, right? Let's see. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.